honestly think, and this is probably unconscious, but I think men think that, oh, if we allow women to begin to have a voice, then they're going to treat us like we treat them. And while I'm not advocating for a new oppressive class, I'm advocating for mutuality.
Welcome to What We Really Want, conversations about connection. Settle in and get ready for a great conversation. Let's talk about what we really want.
Hi, friends. Welcome back to What We Really Want. Today is episode 62. Our guest is Dr. Andrew Bauman, and the episode's called I Want to Be a Good Man. I do want to be a good man, and if you're a man listening, and I hope you do too, if you're a woman listening and you're in a relationship, I'm sure you would want your man to say that same thing. And if you're familiar at all with Andrew Bauman, you'll know that he has a passion for working with and helping men, particularly Christian men, actually live out biblical masculinity and the attributes of Jesus, being kind, being sacrificial, and not perpetuating some of the really harmful missteps within the church and within culture. Andrew and his wife, Christy, founded the Christian Counseling Center for Sexual Health and Trauma. They work with individual clients. They host intensives for individuals and couples, and have really just been super active in helping people heal from trauma and really heal from the practice of being those who inflict trauma on others. Andrew's the author of many books, including Stumbling Toward Wholeness, The Sexually Healthy Man, How Not to Be an Ass, Essays on Becoming a Good and Safe Man, and a book called Safe Church, How to Guard Against Sexism and Abuse in Christian Communities. It will not take you long listening to Andrew speak to know that he is a passionate and intense advocate for helping people to relate to each other in kind and safe and godly ways. Hope you enjoy the conversation. Again, that's episode 62 called I Want to Be a Good Man with our guest Andrew Bauman, and the conversation starts right now. How's your Wednesday so far?
Good. Just got to play some pickleball. Got to do a little work and got to clean up the place before our new group of men come in tomorrow. So,
well, the first time that you and I talked, turned out that I just had terrible problems with the audio and couldn't use it. That was almost 2 years ago. And then the second time we were scheduled to talk, Hurricane Helene decided to change the plan. And you and Christy are in Brevard, North Carolina, which is an area. Is that where you are right now?
Yeah.
So that was an area that was just slammed by the hurricane.
Yes.
And I remember that at the time we were supposed to record, I heard from your assistant, you guys were not only helping, but you were doing some coordination with a lot of hurricane relief.
I mean, we were fortunate as far as our county, no deaths. We probably lost 25 homes-ish. But then, around us, Asheville, Hendersonville, Asheville just got decimated. Swannanoa just decimated, deaths and all sorts of destruction. And so, we were in a privileged position where, we just lost a lot of trees. Our house was fine. We lost power, water for about 10 days. And then we were able to kind of leverage our platform and raise some money for people in need and, just try to help where we could, coordinate some resource gatherings and whatnot. So just did a small part, just trying to help out our community that we care about.
I'm sure a part that feels small, and how you're describing it didn't feel very small, the people who are benefiting from it. That's how it usually works, isn't it?
Yes.
Well, man, I can't wait to get in this conversation. I know we've been communicating some via email about what I hoped to talk about. So you kind of know what I want out of our conversation. With that in mind, I'd love to ask you what I always ask is, what do you really want out of the next minutes that we're going to be talking?
Yeah. I love, I get inspired by authentic engagement and authentic conversation, and just love this work, and love what I get to do. So I'm always pumped when I get to talk about it. So thanks for having me on.
For sure. Well, I met you in person for the first time almost exactly 2 years ago. I think it was right when you were almost ready to release Safe Church. I don't think it was out yet, but you were working on it and it was close.
Correct. That's right. And I think that was the first lecture of the material. That was the first time I introduced the material. Yep, for sure.
Well, for people who are interested in having conversations about abuse, gender inequity, yours is a name that more and more is coming up in those conversations. And it's something that I know that you care very deeply about. And so
yes,
I guess before we start talking about the feel-good topic of abuse, I would just love to know, like, how did you come to the place in your career and in your personal life where you kind of realized you were going to be one of the voices that was keeping the topic of abuse in Christian conversations?
Yeah, I mean, like all good good things that we care about, that comes from my own trauma, comes from my own heartache. And so a few different doorways, entryways. Probably the most prominent is my father was a pastor and also an abuser, and also cheated on my mom for 25 years, yet was also vice president of a Christian college, pastor, a lawyer, interesting combo. And my mom just wanted to be, a good Christian wife. We listened to James Dobson every morning, and that was my upbringing. And so that all blows up when my father gets caught and somebody blackmails him and for cheating on my mom, and we're going to report it to the newspaper. Anyway, my whole life blows up, and I'm 7 years old.
Oh gosh.
Right. So that's my origin story. Right. And so as that kind of blows up, fast forward, I discovered pornography around 12 when the internet became a thing, and, HBO late at night at my buddy's house. And slowly that begins to grip me for 13 years. But I was also, studying Bible and religion in college, and became a youth pastor and a college pastor. So that was kind of in conjunction as I'm becoming a pastor and, in the kind of a more conservative theological upbringing and awareness, where this kind of misogyny and objectification of women kind of merge with my understanding of theology, understanding of God, and my use of pornography. And so I don't really understand which is what. What is theology? What is misogyny? Well, women are less than. I use women like perverting submission and all these different topics that I ended up abusing. And so that was kind of untangling that mess. And I was only a youth pastor for a couple of years before I was like, this doesn't feel right. This does, I don't feel like something's off here. And so at that point, I kind of blew up my own life, ended up in the psychiatric ward, nearly taking my own life. And that was like the beginning, almost 22 years ago, of putting back the pieces. What do I want to do? How do I want to live? Who do I want to be? Beginning to tell the truth of my story, facing my deepest shame, facing my fears, and in that, discovering the depth of my purpose, that I no longer want to be an abuser of women, but I actually want to be an advocate of women.
How much community do you feel like you have versus how alone do you feel like you are in this space in 2026?
Yeah. I mean, I think it's been a long time coming. I've been in this work a while now, 15 years-ish. And I've had to kind of blaze my own trail, right, of thinking of, okay, what do I care about? What do I want to talk about? I'm not Dan Allender. I'm not, but I've studied under these guys and I've worked with them, but trusting in me, right? Trusting in my body, the God who lives in me. No, this is my message. I can't be them. I can't be that. I got to trust in my voice. What do I bring to the table? And that's that believing in my goodness, and kind of the more public I get, the more the hate mail I get, or the more, angry husbands or whose wife read my work and got free or what. It's just I'm learning to both kind of protect my heart more in a sense, the more public I get. And yet also it's okay, I believe in what we're doing. I hear too many good stories from men that are actually learning to be having integrity, learning to honor women rather than objectify them, and actually learning to be courageous men. And it's just I feel like part of me is just getting started.
We'll be right back.
How have things gotten so out of control? How did something that didn't seem like such a big deal at first completely take over? Porn and sex addiction are destroying your life and killing your relationships. You know you can't keep going on like this, keeping secrets and telling lies. Something has to change. But how? Most men who struggle with unwanted or addictive sexual behavior have tried to fix it on their own. But sex addiction is powerful and complicated. Recovery is possible, but it isn't easy. It requires us to focus on more than just behavior. It requires us to look at our whole lives and the parts of our stories that contribute to addiction. If you're ready to find freedom, maybe it's time for you to get to the roots. The Roots Retreat is a 4-day therapeutic and spiritual intensive. You'll work with therapists and coaches who specialize in sex addiction and recovery. You'll learn how to take healthy ownership of your behavior. You'll discover how your life experiences set the stage for addiction to develop. You'll see how God factors into your struggle, and you'll learn effective tools for ongoing recovery after the retreat. If you're ready to stop trying what doesn't work, if you're ready to experience real hope, healing, and change, let's get to the roots.
Visit awakenrecovery.com/Roots Retreat or click the Roots Retreat link in show notes. Yeah. When you said the louder you get, the more you talk about it, you start getting hate mail, people who are really harshly pushing back. What do you think is the most common thing that people feel like is being threatened when you're saying the things that you're saying? Because it can't be that everybody who's pushing back is a terrible person. Something feels like it's being threatened. What are those things?
It feels like I'm running up into this kind of masculine shadow that has to be addressed, right? Or the shadow parts that we don't want to see. And so a lot of it is, it's a threat. It's a threat to power. It's a threat to the systems that be. So I honestly think, and this is probably unconscious, but I think men think that, if we allow women to begin to have a voice, then they're going to treat us like we treat them.
Oof.
And while I'm not advocating for a new oppressive class, I'm advocating for mutuality. The 2,800 women that I studied for my book, Safe Church, and that research, they didn't want to
take
somehow power over.
Yeah.
All they kept asking, I just want a seat at the table. I just want to have representation. I just want to have somebody know what it's like to be a woman in this world of patriarchy, of objectification. What it's like to be in this church where I feel sexism and abuse all the time.
Yeah.
Where I feel like scripture is weaponized against me. I just want representation. And so that's what I heard, right? And yet some of the studies over, 82% of women said they felt like sexism was in their church, right? And when I say sexism, right, it's just simply prejudice, discrimination, stereotyping because of someone's sex.
Yeah.
Right? So 82% believed out of over 2,800 women. Like, that's wild, right? So we have all these things going on, and I think that's partly. I think it's been happening since eons, but I think what's heightened it even more is in the last 25 years, the increase of internet pornography, and the increase of the increase of that kind of what we do as men to feel big. To feel strong, to feel like a man, because I actually feel really young and scared inside. And so to have a quick fix is to objectify, is to feel powerful and have that power over.
So there's church culture, and then there's just culture. I mean, you're talking about sexism and the lack of mutuality between genders within the church, but the church didn't invent this. I mean, and it's not the only place where it's happening. I mean, you talk in society about pay gap, about opportunity gaps. I mean, is the patriarchal culture in general affecting the church, or is it more the other way around, or is it just two things in parallel lanes?
Yeah, they all intertwine, right? And so we also have to deal with, as we're becoming healthier in our gender, right? We have to deal with, I write about this in my new book. Not only the church culture, not only society as a whole, but also our family culture. What did your parents teach you about masculinity? Yeah. What did your parents teach you about femininity? Yeah. Like, what did you learn? What are the messages we're taking in? And so part of the healing for me, as I focus on the masculine, is how do we undo these messages that we received? How have you been socialized? Right? I have all these categories of socialization, but we have to enter into, actually, who do I want to be? No, I don't want to be the nice guy. No, I don't want to be the asshole. No, I don't want, how do I be an attuned man who is emotionally aware and not an inept caveman. So my wife feels incredibly alone and completely by herself in relationship with me. No, so I can actually connect with my kids on a deep level. So I can actually have good sex. Like, that's what we're talking about. Right.
Yeah.
And so often, in our practice, my wife and I work with a lot of couples, and so often a woman will have done so much work, reading all the books, right? Seeking us out, doing it, and she almost drags her husband along. And I just see it time and time again. And then it feels like emotionally, relationally, I use many sports metaphors. I use this one though. Basically, it feels like she's playing in the minor leagues and he's playing T-ball. Right. And so it's like, oh, you want to play on the same field relationally, and you haven't done any work to prep to play ball at that high level.
Right.
And you want to meet each other and actually have good sex, actually have good communication, actually parent well together. No. You haven't done any of the prep work.
Right.
Your wife's been doing all the emotional lifting and you're just kind of coasting. And I just work hard and pay the bills. Like, wow. I actually believe in men so much that I think we can set the bar much higher.
Yeah, I mean, you're describing, like, another analogy is she's been going through a course of study and she's at master level, work on this.
Right.
And he hasn't finished yet his remedial English class, in junior college, and he's trying to understand and participate and be a team member on something where he hasn't done any of the prerequisite work.
Exactly.
Trying to pass the 401 course when you haven't even taken the 101 course.
Exactly. And that's what it makes healthy marriages, is a good partnership, right? A good partner, not one partner just dragging the other one along. Right. And so many women are overworking and overfunctioning, and because their husbands are actually underfunctioning. Right. And it's like, wait a minute. I've been working with men for 15 years in a very intimate way, and I believe in them so much. They're so capable. But here's the thing. We have not been taught, and many times the church has enabled us to be underdeveloped, where the actually entitlement is applauded and it's actually promoted to stay underdeveloped. I'm thinking of the research a woman shared that, she went to her pastor when her husband was caught cheating and looking at porn. And the pastor said, well, you've been a Christian longer. You need to set a better example. You need to have more sex. You need to cook more. You need, placing all the blame on the victim, not holding the man accountable for his infidelity. Right. But actually enabling a man who has no integrity to continue to act out.
I call that the 1 Corinthians 7 2x4, that so many uninformed and poorly taught spiritual leaders will just look at the one verse that they know talks about marital sex and say, well, maybe the problem is that you're not having enough. And the violation has happened so long before the absence of sex. I mean, if absence of sex is coming from lack of trust, then that's a good thing, until you get those deeper foundational issues addressed.
Exactly.
Well, you said, hey, I believe in that I see your potential. I want to ask you, and I know that there's uniqueness and individuality from couple to couple. I realize that. But do you see a general trend among women whose husbands have been abusive, have subscribed to the old patterns, who maybe aren't at the same level ready to do the work, but they have acknowledged, okay, I see it now. I have a desire to change. Well, there's going to be a learning curve, right? It's going to be clunky. Totally. How often do you see their partners willing to be patient, to show grace?
All the time, if they're actually doing the work.
That's what I thought you'd say.
If they're actually heavy lifting. Now, what I do see often is, well, he's been in recovery for 20 years. Well, he still goes to his group every Monday night, right? And it's just like, you're not actually doing the work. You can read about it in my article. I forgot what I called it. Somehow the secret of men's groups. I don't know what I said. Something like that. Some article I wrote. But basically, it's the idea that we are pretending to heal, right? But when we go to these groups, and really what it is in a sense, we're just applauding each other's guilt and we're assuaging each other's guilt. Nobody's actually doing the deep work of healing their core wounds. There's, it reminds me of 30 years ago when our accountability group, right? And we would if we looked at porn, we just give $5 and put it in the roof of the church, whatever. We called it the jackpot. Nobody actually got healthy. We just put $5 in the thing and tried to shame each other into not whacking off anymore.
Yeah.
Right. That's not healing. So a lot of these recovery groups aren't actually dealing with the core wounds.
Yeah.
The core wounds are what's driving the eroticism.
Yes. The
core wounds are what's driving the sexual acting out. So if you don't deal with the roots, you're never going to get to it. And so that's what we do in our work. And we're having a lot of success doing that because that's what actually stops the acting out behavior. And once you do that work, your behavior changes.
Yep.
So I tell women all the time, it's not what they say they believe. Right? Don't listen to your husband's words. Right? Behavior is a language. Actually watch. Just sit back and watch. You don't have to do any work anymore. You've overfunctioned for far too long.
Right.
Just sit and watch, and you'll see this man be different. He'll engage you different. He'll engage his kids different. He'll engage his friendships, his relationships differently.
Yes.
Right? There'll be an increased humility. His face will literally change.
And it won't be 100% in the first 2 weeks, but you'll see a trajectory.
Of course not.
You'll see it changing. And you'll be able to tell over time whether they are an active participant in their own healing and recovery or whether they're what I call a recovery voyeur, just somebody who comes and listens to other people talk about the work that they're doing. And they learn the language, but it's all hypothetical. It's all,
Exactly. Yes. And you'll feel different in their body, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you'll see it, you'll feel it. I tell women all the time, trust your intuition, trust your body. And at the point it shifts when he's no longer trying to please you, when he's no longer trying to make it about you, and when he literally just doubles down on, I want to be a good man for my sake.
Yeah. And I'm going to do this work whether we make it or not.
Exactly. And I'm not looking for you to respect me. I hope you do, but I'm looking to respect me.
Yes.
I want to be a man that I can respect, right? And so that comes with integrity and when you grow your courage.
Yeah. So drilling in a little bit more specifically in our conversation about abusive behavior. When abusive behavior takes place in a relationship, I mean, would it be a fair statement to say that not every person who behaves abusively is doing so out of the same underlying contributors?
Yeah, totally. So basically, and not all abusers are created the same. So I created something in this book back here called How Not to Be an Ass. It's a short, little easy read, but there's a spectrum of an abuser that I define there. And basically, I kept seeing all these men come into my office and their wives, my husband's an abuser, my husband's an abuser. And yet I've worked with this whole spectrum where I've literally had to move my family out of the house because I thought somebody was going to come kill me, where I've had to walk out into the parking lot with a key between my fists because I thought he was going to stab me. It's like I've worked with violent men who I thought were going to kill me. That's not the norm. Yes. I mean, literally, maybe, thought I was going to die maybe 3 times out of 15 years. But the norm
that's too many times, by the way.
Sure, I guess, yeah.
Let's not glaze over that. I feared for my life professionally 3 times in 15 years. That's okay. Some people have it worse than that. But
sure, but out of thousands and thousands of men, right, that I've worked with, that's a small percentage.
And that's important to say,
And yes. And so, and again, I'm working with thousands of men that are narcissists, that are that are abusers. So there's an edge to them. Right. And so the norm is not that, I call that extreme a narcissistic coward. So he's violent. There's an evilness, and he most likely won't change. I believe in Jesus. I believe in the power to change. He's most likely not going to. He could, sure. A lot of stuff has to happen.
Yeah.
Most likely doesn't happen. He doesn't stay in therapy either. Doesn't stay in the work. He leaves and he does more harm. The norm is what I call the unaware fool. This is the man that I see all the time. This is the good Christian guy, the deacon, the usher at church, the kind, nice Christian. He just hasn't done his emotional work. He has not looked at his own life, his own story. He has no awareness of his own body. Maybe he's relapsed in porn every now and then, or I did it, a few times, Or I
Well,
told my
and
wife,
also, how often is he replaying patterns that he saw in generations above him?
yeah, all the time. Unprocessed trauma is always reenacted.
Yeah.
So if he hasn't processed his trauma, he's going to reenact it, right? And so that guy is the norm. So I call that the unaware fool. He can change, but he also has to own his abuse, that his unawareness has brought abusive patterns to his wife. His unawareness has been abusive, right? His lies or deception or whatever the nature, or just kind of refusal to engage his wife emotionally. And because you can't, if you haven't looked at your own life and your own shadow, you can't connect to somebody else at that level if you haven't done it for yourself, right?
Yes, right.
And so that's his work. And so those are the norm men. So those men can change, but sometimes it's not so subtle. The abuses are so subtle that it's like, wait, I'm an abuser? Wait, they have a problem with that word rather than just like, yeah, you are.
Kind of getting hung up on the verbiage.
Sure, yeah, they get stuck there. But you're an unaware fool, and you can change with awareness, and you can become a different man, and that's the work ahead.
Well, whether it's therapy around really difficult things like you're talking about, or 12-step work, or even the gospel. I mean, all of those three things I just mentioned start with bad news first, and then they transition over to good news. And what you're talking about with what you're calling the unaware fool, it's bringing to mind something that a friend of mine told me about William Wilberforce, who was one of the voices in England, during the slave trade. And, we all hear the stories about John Newton and how he was a slave trader before he had that experience and was converted, wrote Amazing Grace. But I remember hearing the quote, and maybe it was from the movie Amazing Grace, but William Wilberforce, when he was speaking to Parliament, he says, now you can decide whether or not you're going to act, but you can no longer say you didn't know. And so it's like taking the veil of ignorance away is what I hear you describing.
That's right. That's right.
So when people have that veil pulled away, it probably feels pretty harsh or violent because they don't see themselves as a bad guy. They don't see themselves as an abuser. How do you hold both compassion and accountability for the same person?
For sure, for sure. Well, that's where we have to hold it. I believe that's the tension of the Christian walk, is we live in between the death and the resurrection, and we hold both of those. So if I'm all resurrection, if you've ever met those types of Christians, oh, God's good, brother, all the time. It's just like, oh my gosh, like I want to dig my eyes out with a spoon. It's just like, it's not true. There's no way you can be that happy all the time, right? Like, I hate you.
It's true that God's good, but it's not true that you're always feeling it that way.
Exactly. And the resurrection is just as true as the crucifixion. And if you're all doom and gloom and you're all death, that's not accurate either.
Yeah.
Because the resurrection is true. So can you hold the tension of both? And that's our journey as well. And in the healing process, we hold the tension of our depravity and our goodness. I have failed. I have harmed, abused, and objectified women. And I'm an image bearer of God. And God lives in my body. Both are true simultaneously. So if I can hold that tension, then I can never become too prideful. Because I know my darkness, I know my shadow, and I can never become too self-contemptuous. I can't, because I know my glory. I know my goodness. I'm an image bearer of God.
That's so important. I don't want to go past this too quickly, because when you're acknowledging hard things about yourself that are going to tend to invite me to go to shame really quickly, if I'm not tethered strongly to my image, imago Dei, that I'm an image bearer, that it's going to be so hard to resist that invitation and not accept it. Living in Birmingham, Alabama, which, was the focal point of the civil rights movement in the 60s, I'm grateful that I didn't have parents who grew me up with messages of racism, but I still grew up in Alabama. And, as a 55-year-old man now, I've for the last 4 years gone to a church where our lead pastor is a black man, and I am being confronted with some of my latent racism that I didn't even know that I had. And I don't like saying that out loud. Like, I have always
Yes.
seen myself as a non-racist.
Exactly.
Because I haven't been outwardly and actively hostile.
Exactly.
But I've never known until I've gotten older how easy it is to be white, and just to forget about other people. And I can see that happening in relationships too.
Yes. And same is true for sexism, right, as well. And that's that journey that we all have to take. I just wanted to add one thing, because you're talking about shame as men end up kind of naming their darkness, naming their depravity. It's so important that we don't turn to toxic shame. And I call that the deflated narcissist. And so the deflated narcissism, because you have that typical grandiose narcissist, right? He's up here. I'm better than all of you, right? That's that classic kind of narcissism. But we also have the inverse of that. We call that the deflated narcissist. He says, I'm worse than you. I'm not only worse than you, I'm worse than everybody. I'm the worst piece of crap here. I've done the worst. The journey is the same. Healing is in the middle. The grandiose narcissist has to come down, and the deflated narcissist has to come up.
Well, both of those are kind of, hey, look at me.
They're all about you, and they miss the victim.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
They miss the victim. It's not about the victim. It's still about you. Either I'm the worst or I'm the best.
But it's still
all about me.
Yeah.
Yep. And we miss the actual one that we've done the harm to. So when you go to shame, when you go to toxic shame, you're still making the victim invisible. And if it's your wife that you've betrayed, what if we center her journey rather than making it all about you? And could you let healthy shame or guilt or whatever we want to call it actually humble you? Not turn to shame, not turn to toxic shame, but actually humble you. And that's why the root word of humble, humility, the word is hummus. Okay, it is not the yummy chickpea hummus. It's the ground earth, right? When the dead leaves fall and the earth begins to decay and rot, and it creates this rich soil for new growth. That's humility.
Yeah.
That's the essence of new life for men who have failed and participated in destructive behaviors.
And that's the death and resurrection that you were talking about. The death prepares and enriches the soil for life to come out of it again.
Exactly. Man. And we don't run around choosing death. We live in a fallen world. It's going to happen, right? If you are aware and alive, you will feel death, big D or small d. It happens all the time.
Yeah.
And so will you be just present to it and stop running from it, stop numbing from it, and actually begin to feel and grieve what you need to feel so we can become human again?
And so for couples who have been in this place where there hasn't been mutuality, there has been sexism, there's been abuse, whether it was overt, grandiose narcissism, or whether it was perpetuating the system and the power differential. When you've got a man who says, okay, I'm a part of the problem, I don't want to do that or be that way anymore, and starts doing the work. I know it's impossible to answer this the same way for everybody, but is there kind of a typical, hey, you're signing up for X amount of time where it's going to be really tough before it starts to feel more natural?
Yeah, it varies. I mean, literally, I remember one guy came to 6 intensives, and it's just like, it doesn't matter, but they all look the same, whether it happens quickly or if it takes a longer time. All the guys that change their life, there's a similar, and it's the same stuff. They go through what we just described. They go through a crucifixion. They go through death. Many times that's in person, that we watch that as we're acting out their, we're engaging their child sexual abuse, not just through narratively, but actually somatically in their body. And we're actually in their healing, and we're watching them wail and shake and grieve as we're holding them as they cry, as they're grieving their lost childhood, as they're holding their internal little boys that were so abandoned. And so, but there's a death, there's a grief, there's a pain. And so those are the men that change, the ones that actually are ready to, in a sense, die so that they can live again.
And as they're changing and as they're healing and as they're growing, we got to do that with support and in community. We don't do it in isolation, and we can't really do it as effectively as we want to if the only person around us is our partner. And so you talked earlier about some of the ways that things go wrong in recovery communities, but community is not the problem. It's how I'm showing up for community. You have actually just launched on the day we're talking. It's like today or yesterday, you've just launched an online community for men called Manland. And I wanted to make sure to give you some time to talk about that.
Yeah, thank you. I'm so excited about it. It really just fits in with what we've been doing. You know, we've been running these groups the last 8 years as far as in-person workshops, and now we finally have a bigger container to help all these men that we've helped. It's an online community. It's basically got all our resources, books in one place. You know, groups every week. We do live teachings every month. I do an office hour every week, and so we have a group of men. We just launched it. It's already got like 70 men in there. You know, it's a low fee right now, $39 a month. And it's just, I'm so excited about it. But basically men are so lonely. Yeah. Men are so lonely, and authentic men that aren't, this is not like, we're not like sitting here trying to posture. You know, the initial question you're asked when you go is, you know, your name, where you're from, and how do you sabotage intimacy? You know, like it's like that's the intro, right? So it's like we got
a little light chat, you know.
Exactly. So it's just we're trying to create something different, of vulnerability, and you know, we got all sorts of free resources once you get in there. So appreciate you plugging that. But yeah, you can check us out. Manland is the new online community.
Yeah, let's talk about it a little bit more. I mean, because when somebody who is realizing that I'm lonely, I don't have the capacity, the skill set, like to know even how to address my loneliness. Nobody's ever taught me how to do that. Like I've never had masculinity healthily bestowed upon me. Yes. An online community like yours is going to be a great place, and it sounds like yours specifically is going to be a great place to learn about what's been missing and how to start moving toward it. But I'm sure that you don't want men's complete experience with this to be online. How is this going to work with something else that you would say that they ought to be pursuing in their life?
Yeah. And so one of the things that we suggest, you know, as this group grows larger, the hope is that, we begin to connect regionally, begin to connect with people in person. A lot of the guys have already come through our program, and some of the guys already have been meeting years after our groups because they have such a unique experience. But the real connection, even if it's just, again, over coffee, not in person, is obviously the best care. And so that's the hope is, you know, eventually continue to do more in-person meetups. And especially with the work we do, you know, we call it narrative somatics, basically story work mixed with body work. And with narrative somatic, you know, we're hands-on. We believe your body holds the trauma. And so we actually have to tend to your body. And so that's the part of the work that online stuff will never be able to duplicate. And yet, again, it's not therapy, yet it is therapeutic, right? Yeah. It is. We need to have meaningful conversations because we're not getting it, you know, normally at our church.
Yeah. How many men are ready to go from emotionally and relationally constipated, no experience of this at all, to letting somebody put their hands and do somatic work with me in one step?
Right. Exactly. Yeah, it's our entry level into kind of what we're doing.
And when you take that first step, you're going to be with people who have taken the second and third, probably, and you're benefiting from them being a little further ahead on the road than you are.
Yeah, well said.
So the way that people can find out more about Manland, I'm going to put it in show notes, but I want to hear you say it too, just for people that are listening.
Yeah. I'll send you the direct link, and you can find it on my blog, andrewjbauman.com, or you can get it through christiancc.org, which is where our business, my wife and I run the Christian Counseling Center for Sexual Health and Trauma. And so you can find it on that link as well, on all my social media accounts as well. But just click the link, and you can just search it on Google as well.
And this is Dr. Andrew and Dr. Christy Bauman. And Correct. You guys founded your practice how long ago?
About 15 years now. Yeah, we've been doing this a long time.
Almost as long as I've been in recovery. And I just remember in 2009 when that started for me, I mean, there was so little out there. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
You know, there was so little. Dan had written The Wounded Heart. You know, Dan was talking about before most anybody else was. But for people who are walking through broken sexual experiences now, I'm just so grateful for voices like yours and Christy's and others who are in the space. And just thanks for standing up and speaking up for people who have been kind of beaten down. It's important.
Yeah, no doubt. I appreciate you reaching out, and I'm glad we can make this work.
I am too. Thanks for your work, and thanks for spending some time talking.
Awesome. Thanks, Greg. Good seeing you.
We'd love to hear from you. If you have questions, feedback, topics you'd like to hear us talk about on the show, click the Send Us a Message link in the show notes of any episode.